Hello, and welcome to another episode of our In the Jumpseat podcast by CUPE Local 8125 for WestJet flight attendants and other listeners. My name's Cameron Jones, and I'm the recording secretary for the Local and the host of today's episode. I'm joined here today with our president, Alia Hussein. Welcome, Alia. How are you?
Good, Cameron. Thank you.
So today we're recapping the Bargaining Priorities Townhalls that took place at all of our permanent bases earlier this fall. Those sessions were held in early September and were a critical part of preparing for bargaining, hearing directly from our members, validating priorities, and ensuring we had strong backing at the table. And I know there were a lot of questions about why we didn't immediately release the priorities or the proposals right after those sessions. Would you be able to touch on that?
Absolutely. At the time, we were entering into bargaining, and our strategy was to keep our position and our priorities strategically to ourselves before we entered into our initial conversations with the company. So first and foremost, I want to thank all of our members for their patience and their understanding, because today we'll go through those priorities and share them because we're 1 month into bargaining.
So let's talk a little bit about how we got here before we get into the actual bargaining priorities. So the town halls were one step in a much larger preparation process, right?
Before we even sat down with the company, as a committee, we sat down and we analyzed every single collective agreement out there for Canadian flight attendants, as well as several from other countries, including the United States. We reviewed the collective agreements across the CUPE airline division, including Air Canada, Sunwing, Flair, Comair, Porter, and PAL. We also looked at economic trends, inflation, wage standards, and assessed grievance data from the local internally. In addition to that, we looked at member feedback to identify consistent problem areas. Our goal as a local and as a bargaining committee was to build a comprehensive member-backed proposal package.
And I think that's really important. Our collective agreement, it has 52 articles and every single one was reviewed, right?
Exactly. Every single one. Because we're not just fixing the larger issues that the membership has identified. Our goal is to strengthen the entire collective agreement.
All right, so let's get into what members actually said during the town halls, what came through loud and clear during the surveys, and some of the conversations we had with our members across the country.
For sure, Cameron. We had over 63% of the workforce participate in the overall priority survey, and that's incredible when you think about the membership our size to have that many people participate.
I couldn't agree more. So can you walk us through what the top 4 priorities are?
For sure. So the first priority was overwhelmingly wages, compensation, cabin personnel responsibilities.
I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone, but are you able to walk us through what that actually includes?
So what that means is an end to unpaid work for boarding, deplaning, delays, diversion, training, tiding, and ground duties, full pay for all work performed and not just time in the air, and most importantly, significant wage increases were identified as our number 1 priority.
The second priority came back as scheduling rest and time off. So can you talk a little bit about what that includes?
So this was fairly comprehensive, but some short snippets on this one would be things like better minimum rest during irregular operations, shorter maximum duty days, layover rest starting with key in hand, for example.
I think that's really important for our members, especially when sometimes we arrive at hotels and there is no hotel available. So that was a very popular response we got at the town halls from our members as well. Priority number 3 included allowances, meals, and hotels. So can you talk about what that includes?
You bet. So that means higher per diems, better hotel standards and compensation for delays, safer, more timely transportation were some of the examples identified.
Amazing. And then our number 4 priority came up as benefits and health coverage, which I know is important for many members.
Right, and so this included increased employer contributions, expanded coverage for mental health, massage, vision, dental, and disability.
So in addition to the top 4 priorities, our members also brought up other major topics that tie into our day-to-day realities, like reserve and job security.
Yeah, reserve came up a lot. Members want transparency, fair compensation, fewer reserve blocks. So from our perspective, a separate follow-up survey will come just on that issue. Job security was also huge. Members want stronger scope language to protect against contracting out, wet leases, and business restructuring. And more recently in the news, we heard about the IPO. So that's something that we would need to address.
So beyond these top priorities, there were some other areas members raised that might not get as much attention, but are still really important.
So we heard loud and clear about health and safety being a priority, stronger committees, better company accountability, and support for flight attendants after critical incidents.
Another area we heard about was in training, so making training fully paid and have it scheduled like a regular pairing, including travel to and from training.
Our members expressed the importance of flexibility, maintaining shift trades, exploring voluntary work options.
Retirement and financial security was also another important topic, ensuring members have options for the future.
Also, hotels, transportation, and commuting, better standards and reimbursements.
I also remember there was a couple discussions about some new committees that we were potentially looking at negotiating into this agreement. Can you talk about that a little bit?
You bet. Members want a service committee and a professional standards committee to strengthen consultation and professional development. This would ensure that our voices are represented whenever changes are made to our roles, training, or onboard service expectations, or even onboard configurations like the LOPA.
So now we've gathered all this input from the membership. So can you walk us through what happens next and what has been happening so far at the table?
So we've already served notice to bargain on September 16th from Parliament Hill as a part of a day of action on unpaid work. Our first meeting with the company was on September 22nd when we exchanged our opening statements, which the membership has access to on our website. We are now into active bargaining, starting with non-monetary items and moving towards compensation as our talks progress. I do think it's important that we share that this week, our fourth week of bargaining, things kind of slowed down a little bit. So we went through a lot of the non-monetary items. However, as we approach compensation and have more disclosure to go through, what we've noticed is a bit of a slowdown in the room. Negotiations will continue, though, until we reach a tentative agreement or an impasse, and throughout, members will be updated every step of the way.
And we'll keep using member feedback to guide our strategy at the table.
Exactly. This is a member-driven process.
Alia, thanks again for walking us through everything that came out of the town halls.
Thanks, Cameron, and thank you to every member who attended, asked questions, shared feedback. Your input shapes our proposals and gave us the mandate we're carrying forward into bargaining.
So to everyone listening, thank you for your patience, your participation, and your continued unity. We're in bargaining now, and your engagement is what gives us the strength at the table. Stay tuned for updates, and we'll talk again soon. And thanks for joining us in the Jump Seat.